Hey guys, we'll be live in a few more minutes. So please share this link with your friends so they can also join the live stream. There's a lot to learn from Bhavani today. I'm looking forward to having an very interesting discussion. So just hang in there for a few more minutes. We'll just give it a few more minutes, Bhavani, so let them join.
Sure.
Hey guys, we'll be live in a few more minutes. Please share this link with your friends so they can also join the live stream.
I hear a feedback. Is that me?
Sorry?
I hear a feedback from I think it's the YouTube live stream.
Oh, yeah, I think it might be for YouTube. Okay, I've closed all those other tabs.
Yes, yeah, good.
Did you have it open, Bhavani, in the YouTube?
No, I don't have it open.
Okay. Okay, just one more minute to go.
It's like a countdown now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and launch.
Yeah, it's good to start on time, so. Yeah, I think it's fine. We can get started. And this is recorded, so people will watch even after the live stream. So it doesn't matter. Okay. Okay, then let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to Facebook Developer Circle Live. I'm really excited to kickstart this new series called Becoming a Self-Made Developer. And for our first episode, we have with us Bhavani Ravi. We've been connected for a very long time, Bhavani and I. I know her through Chennai Geeks community, and I've seen her grow from being a college student to what she's now right now, right? So I think Bhavani, you can just go ahead and give us an intro about you, like what you do right now. Yes, you can get started.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Bhavani Ravi. I'm currently working as a senior software engineer at Saama Technologies. Though my role also calls me as a research engineer, that's my primary work, and that feeds me bread and butter. Gives me money. On top of that, I run WomenTechMakers Chennai community, a part of Google Developers Group. And yeah, so that's very code community and then blogs. That's what I am doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. So I think we can get started to know a little bit about you, right? Like, how do you
Mhm.
start your day, and what do you do every day? Because I see a lot of developers who have issues with this. People think I'm getting distracted every day. I'm not able to be productive. Or how do I
Mhm.
become a developer and I learn those skills, right? So I think we can get a small peek into your life. Like, how does your day look like? Can you tell us what do you do from the time you wake up till you go to the bed? Do
Mhm.
you have a strict routine, or do you, have a random schedule? Yeah.
Okay, I think you are very right about being a developer. You can never afford to have a very strict schedule. Like 9 to 5 was never a is never a thing. The moment you start pushing code to production, because if something pops up, you have to be there to fix it, right? So,
Right.
but consciously, I can try to make an effort to kind of stick to my schedule, whereas making time to learn and then take care of your health and all that. But a perfectly imperfect day would look like, you waking up in the morning and then directly switching on your laptop because something has broken in the production and you have to start working, and it goes on. Worst case scenario, it goes on until 12 o'clock in the night. So that has happened. On a perfect day, I would wake up very leisurely, do my yoga, have a cup of coffee, and then learn something new for a couple of hours, and then aramse go and start working, and then close it off at 7 p.m. and then do something like spending time with my family or painting it out. Fortunately, I'm a very privileged kid. My mom takes care of all the operational stuff at home, so I like so that thing is all taken care of for me. I'm like the privileged kid of the family. So none of the other operational household stuff are not in my list at all for now, at least.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good. So you have more time to contribute to your coding and other work, right?
Exactly. Like people often, look at me and all saying, "How do you have so much time?" And they'll be having, they'll be probably married and they'll have 2 kids. Obviously, you're not gonna have so much time. So, I'm like the wrong example if you want to be productive. And yeah, so I have a lot of people who are doing a lot of things for me, and that's how I can focus only on code and community.
Right, right. So this session, the focus for this session is to understand, how did you like become a developer from being a college student? There's a gap there actually, from being a college student. How do you become a developer? There's a lot of gap there. So we're trying to
Yeah.
address certain things. We want to like dig some insights from you to know like what
Okay.
these are the things that you did and to become a developer, right? So can you like tell us a little bit about how you got started with coding? You know, was it in
Mhm.
college or after college? How did it happen?
Mhm. So after 10th only you kind of choose your vocation, right? What do you really want to be? So I'm like very bad at basic math also. So accounting and all is not my thing. I do very silly mistakes in maths. So that was out of the question. And I hate doctor's place altogether. So that was not an option. So the next best option is computer science. And that's how I entered it. It was not like, when I joined computer science in 11th standard, I don't even know the difference between a BPO company and an IT company
Oh,
because the whole family does not have the education as a background at all. So nobody has ever done a degree or have ever experienced a college environment. So that's how I come from. So you definitely do not know. So the best of the three is computer science, and that's how I got in. Thankfully, my 11th and 12th standards teachers, computer science teachers, were amazing. Everywhere else, maths, science, and all, I'll be somewhere in 70, but computer science alone, I'll be somewhere in 90s. So in the mark range, right? So that's how it was. So the teachers are what makes and breaks a subject, right? My teacher would make it. Her name is Kritika actually, and she has made sure that you learn something really well, both in the theory class and in your practical class, right? And that's the motivation and the passion that she had for teaching that kind of transforms into you to learn all that, grasp all that, and work on it. And the first, I also want to try quirky things. I also like go beyond, break the rules and stuff. So when she asked me to write a program that prints 10 numbers, I chumma increased the number to 10,000 and just it was having running there, and it was just fun to watch. So that's like the hook. And every other program I tried, it would not work for 4 days, and then fifth day it will work, and that aha moment, right? That's the hook. I think even now that's the hook, when trying to learn Kubernetes or Docker or anything, it will break like crazy, but at one point it will work, and that's the motivation you get. So I think,
Right.
yeah, it started from the school, and thanks to my teachers.
Good that you found your passion early in your school time, right? Like there are friends of mine who were struggling even after college. They couldn't find their passion, so they were like looking. They couldn't know like, okay, you can say that you are interested in coding, but I'm not sure that I'm passionate about coding or not. So I'm lost at that point, right? So there are a lot of people like that. So it's a privilege to actually find your passion too early, right? So
Uh,
what is your idea about passion? Like,
See, passion you can have, right? I was passionate for programming from my 11th standard, but it
mhm,
took me until third year in college to actually mainstream it, like to put
mhm,
all my focus in it. So basically, there's this quote called "You don't know what you don't know,"
mhm,
right? And
mhm.
unless someone
Yes.
pushes you and says, you already know things, you don't know where you are and where you're going. So until third
Right.
year of my college, I was just blindly coding after coding. I used to try competitive programming, which I suck at even now. I can't
Mhm.
do competitive programming at all.
Okay.
So I was trying that. It wouldn't work for me, and I think I'm a very bad developer. I have so much to learn, and that was how the first 2 years of college was. But if I had reached out to someone, right, and they said, you already know so many things. Now go streamline it this way. Go and try doing this. I think that's you need someone to streamline your passion, and that angel won't appear to you. I think you have to reach out to a lot of people, and that's where I missed 2 years of my life in college. The third year, one of my friends put one in my head and said, you already know enough. Now come build an app for me, and then we'll
Mhm.
get started. And then that's how I actually had the confidence to build an app all by myself, and then my final year project, and then my first job.
Right, right. So that's a good point. We don't know what we don't know, right?
True.
That is a big challenge here. So
Exactly.
looking at learning, I have had a lot of people say that there's in today's world there's a lot of things that you can do to get started with learning. There is YouTube, there is Udemy, there is a plethora of resources that I can take up, right? So people are
Mhm.
kind of confused right now. They don't know like where should I get started or how should I get started when I have to learn when I want to learn a programming language, right? So, what is your approach to learning a new programming language or a framework?
Okay. I can say this is a very lazy approach as well, but I would just blindly open a code editor and start working on it because that's what has worked for me so
Mm-hmm.
long, and I think it would work for most of you as well. And never fear, breaking things or failure. It's just a software program. You can shut it off. It's not going to take over your world or anything, right? So
Right.
as long as you're learning programming, just install it in your laptop and start fiddling around with it. But at one point, you have to say, I've learned enough. I want to know beyond, when you're doing programming, if you've learned enough syntax, you can build a bunch of apps. Then you have to take it up a notch and say, I want to learn advanced concepts. What are the mental models that went into the programming as such? So as far as resources are concerned, whatever works for you, works for you. For me, it's just blindly opening a thing and then trying it out. Some of you might need documentation. Some of you might need blogs. Some of you might need a video YouTube tutorial. Some of you might need a course, and that's completely up to you. Don't if one doesn't work, don't give up. You have to actually initially when you're trying out something, right? You have to try out multiple resources because if one is not clicking, something else will click. So have a bunch of resources, explore a bunch of resources more than technology. Whatever works, works. If it doesn't work, move on to something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
that's
on
correct.
that point, yeah,
Go
on
ahead, go
that
ahead.
point, yeah, I've actually tried front-end development for what 5 years now. I've never mastered it. I can do like very minimal UI, and I made a choice that I'm never going to build production level UI systems. I'll build it for my websites, and that's pretty much it. So that's the choice that you need to make. If you're not good at something, just let it go. Move on to something else.
Right, right. So it's like you have to find your strength also, right? Like, am I a good front end guy or a back end guy? Depends on my interest and my preference and things like that, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
So you need to try a bunch of other things and figure out. So there are, like you said, there are multiple options for me, YouTube and everything. So I need to know which
Yes.
works for me, right? So for someone, it might be videos, or so for you, it was just starting the like opening a code editor and writing code. But when you say just open it and do it. Like if you're learning Python for the first time, I cannot do anything if I don't know anything about the syntax, right? So I probably like get started with the documentation, like look at the basic things that you need to know from the documentation, and you write a program basically. How did you start when you learned Python?
Okay.
Or did you build an
Python,
application directly?
okay. The way I learned Python is pretty interesting. Until then, like fourth year of my college, I was all Java. I was so stubborn that Java is the best language in the world. I was not even open to try Python, right? And first day of my job, I joined. It was with Dorai Torla, the one who started Chennai Geeks, right? I was working under him, and he's like full-on Python guy. Most of the
Yes.
community members know he's a full-on Python guy. You can't talk anything other than Python to him. So the first job was, the first job description, like the first task that was given to me, it was in an email. The first task was to learn Python. The second task was to learn Python and finish this task, like build a small application or something. It was a scraping script, I remember. So having already known Java, it was not a lot of deal to pick up Python syntax. So you have to basically look for Java equivalent in Python. How do you write for loops in Python? So those were all the searches that I went for. And then I could finish the script in almost a week. So if you already know a programming language, learning something new is not very difficult. You're starting it blank, like the blank slate here. They have never experienced a programming language before. I would suggest, copy paste the existing code, make it work. And then once it works, go back and ask the question, why is it working? What happens if I change something here? What happens if I change the number 10 to 10,000? Maybe you will find a hook there, right? So I think you have to be somewhat curious and not be in a fear to make mistakes. Break it, nothing happens here. I break things in production also today, so.
Yeah, I've heard about stories where people say that, I have deleted the production database and all.
Yes. Yeah, people make crazy mistakes in the real world, and actually they are not as punished as our education system. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunate for the students.
That's true. Yeah. And one more thing is, I like what you said, about Python. Like you got started by doing some small tasks, right? Like taking up something like web scraping, or maybe writing a simple script that would accomplish something, right? So like trying out few small problems like that is the best way to learn a new programming language like Python, right? So that is one thing for our audience today. And we are talking about communities. We know each other through Chennai Geeks, and we see a lot of communities here, right? So how did that happen for you? Like, who introduced you to the community, developer community, for the first time, or how did that happen for you?
Okay, I don't really know how meetups happened. Like, how did I came across the word meetups or anything? I remember, like, it took me until final year of college to actually know the term hackathon. So one of my guy friends went and won a hackathon, and that's how I know, okay, these kind of competitions happen. So maybe when there is a next time, I'll go. And by the time I was finished with my final year project and everything, I think it was Startup Club's 32 Hour Startup Hackathon. I went there, obviously didn't win or anything. I just liked the vibe of being around people. In 50 hours, yes.
Okay.
In 50 hours. Yeah. So I like the vibe of, being around so many people, though I called myself an introvert back then, which is a total irony, I'm not. So yeah, that was one phase. And then I somehow, through one random Facebook post, I came across this IoT Geeks meetup that's been happening, and have been seeing posts of them constantly every week. And then at one point I was like, okay, I'm going to go and attend this. And convincing my family that, a meetup is the thing, because until now, they're like, they don't know what IT is, how IT works, or how a working woman's life will be, whether she'll come home at 8 or 7. None of those all of them were new. They were also learning along with me. So explaining them what a meetup is, where will I be, where will I go, how will I, come back. I have to give them the address, the organizer's number, and everything, and it was a full man crowd. So I went to this place in Palikarnai, their workshop, and the next day was the workshop. The first day was the preparation. So I was there with all these people. We built a very small robot. Again, I like being around with people. So I think that's when it started. And then I found out, I also tried IoT. First project that we built, that mini robot during the workshop, it bombed. The chip kind of burnt out. So and then I packed the IoT all together and kept it aside. I'm never going to do anything hardware. I'll only do software. And that too, not front end, only back end. So I think, yeah. So I think it kind of, you have to try a lot of things to see what works for you. And that's how community also started, It was not that bang on Chennai Geeks or bang on GDG. It was, I have tried so many things in terms of community. As you know, right, over the years, we have done bot sprints, then running chatbots, and then Build to Learn was there. And now I will do GDG. Yeah. So I think experiment as much as you can.
Right, but then how did you see that doing this thing is going to help me in the future, like going to these meetups or going to this community events? Like, how did you see that there's going to be a benefit out of this in the future? Like, what kind of benefits did you think will come of these by joining meetups? Did you think like
actually nothing? It's just,
you're just there for the fun, for the love of it?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I just want to get out of the house because I've been a very secluded kid, very protected female of the house. So there was like a lot of unconscious bias that I had to deal with. I just want to break all that once you have the financial independence. So the moment I started working, it was a complete transformation, and my parents has to keep up with that. And kudos to that, they have been doing it amazingly well until this long. But yeah, I just wanted to get out of the house, and meetups were a way of doing that.
Okay, yeah, that's true. And you're talking about Build to Learn, right? Like, can you tell us about how did that happen? Like Build to Learn, because I know you organized a lot of Build to Learn sessions at one point. I think it was during your college days, if I'm correct, right? So what made you do that?
It was actually
after college.
Okay. Yeah. Build to Learn was 2 years after college. So the first 2 years, I was working with Dorai, and we were building chatbots in the first 2 years because 2016 chatbots was very new. Nobody knew. Even like the documentation was very raw. The bot that you build today will get an upgrade tomorrow, and it will break. So that's how nascent and new it was in the industry. And we were building that as the actual project for the company. And we were learning tons. Like literally, we were figuring out every piece of architecture that goes into a chatbot. So Dorai was already keen on running communities, right? So the moment I told him I went to IoT Geeks and everything, he said, we should organize a meetup for chatbots, and then you all should teach. We had a team of about 4 or 5 people. So we all went and thought how to build a chatbot in that event. And the funny thing was, until then, I thought, you have to be super experienced, 15 years into the industry, super wise to actually teach someone something. And when you enter this meetup as a speaker, and then there are CTOs and CEOs from other companies sitting there and listening to you, and even more asking questions and learning from you,
Yeah.
And for me, as a fresher, that was like a eye-opening moment. Anybody can teach. You all know something that you can give back to the community. So that's the first hook of keeping on with the community. Beyond the people, it's the giving back. I have a voice. I know something, and I can teach that to other people. So that went on. We, as a part of that, we started bot sprints. So every week, people will come in and they build chatbots on their own, and we will guide them through the process. And then we wanted to, expand it to a wider audience, basically college students, because there is a lot of theory and there is a lot of tutorial. There is nothing hands-on. Workshops works to a level, but they don't go back and try something. If it's a 2-day workshop, right? They try it here, but going back and keeping at it is the problem. So why not create a week-on-week community where they come in, they build. The next week they come and build the same thing, right? So kind of have a track of working on the same project again and again. So that was the idea behind Build to Learn, and it was all Dorai's idea. We were just
Right.
the execution part of it,
Mhm.
but where it was coming from, like the idea was coming from Dorai, and it was completely driven by him. We were just the organizers, and getting it
Mhm.
happening on the field was our job. But that was ton of fun. Like we had so much fun, and I think
Mhm.
how to run a community full on, I learned it from there,
From Build to Learn. Mhm.
from Build to Learn. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you made, right? Usually, in a normal hackathon setup, you spend 2 days working on something, and then immediately when the hackathon is over, winners are
Mhm.
announced, and that's it. You go back home and you forget everything that you did there, right? So there's no
Exactly.
continuation to it. So people don't work on those things. So I leave my product halfway, and then I just go back to my usual work. But with
Mhm.
Build to Learn, one thing that I saw which was very interesting is, like people coming back again and again, continuing from where they left. I even saw some people just going there together and learning with the group, right? It's like a study group. People just come there
Yeah.
to learn. Even if they don't know what to build, they just came there to learn something new and then get started by following, one of you, since you guys were building something very interesting,
Mhm.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that was amazing. And I also learned that you are a contributor to these open source softwares like Rasa, NLU, and
Mhm.
Pandas, right? So
Mhm.
how did you get started with open source? Like how did you start learning these open source technologies? Or how did you take this open source route instead of an enterprise route? Can you talk about it?
Okay. I seriously still do not understand what an enterprise route is. So
Okay.
maybe that's why I don't know. I've been always working with Python. Maybe that's why the
Mhm.
world that's close to me was open source, right? But
Mhm.
I'll cover the main thing and I'll revert. So the answer for how I contributed to open source, and then I'll revert. I'll look back and see the
Mhm.
path, right?
Mhm.
So I was working at Orangenscape by when I was contributing to Pandas. So the
Mhm.
first task was to build a reporting module. So with
Mhm.
Python, a reporting module, immediately you go to Pandas, and then
Mhm.
we had a bunch of spec that we had to build, right? So the task that was given to me was go through the spec and see if Pandas fits the purpose. So
Okay.
when you're doing that, I found out like there is a lot of missing features in Pandas.
Mhm.
So one of the functions that we badly need it was missing two parameters that I could use as a configuration, right? So I then went and said to Pandas community, it's just a GitHub issue saying, these two
Mhm.
are missing. This would really help us in this use case. So why don't I build this for you? That's how it started. By the time we dumped Pandas, we didn't want to use Pandas because it was not supporting many other
Mhm.
features, which was
Mhm.
custom for us. But I kept on working on that issue for the next 6, 7 months, on and
Mhm.
off, obviously,
Mhm.
because even if it's like 4 line of change, you have to write 10 test cases, you have to document it, you have to make sure the build passes. After all of that, your contributors has to be happy that you've made a rightful contribution, and then your code goes in between. You will have your main work, you will have your blog post, you'll have your
Mhm.
community, all that, and at the end of 7, 6 months the code finally got in, and it was released in 25.1 version, I guess 0.25.1 version. My code is
Mhm.
there, and that's
Mhm.
like the best feeling in the world. You have your 7 months of
Yes.
work for 4 lines of code.
Wow. Mhm.
But it was amazing feeling. And then I was like, okay, that's my first open source contribution. I was just talking about that again and again
Mhm.
in meetups and all. But one fine day, I went and looked at my repository. I find this projects called Django Support, Django
Mhm.
Alert.
Mhm.
When I was focused, when I was in FFI working with Dorai, I actually had this habit of looking at my fellow interns' code and then
Mhm.
finding calls in them, giving improvement suggestions and stuff like that. And we had a Django requirement where we need an alerting system, and I forked someone's project and made some updates to it and used it in our project. So that was an open source contribution that I made without even
Mhm.
realizing that I had done it. And reading other people's code came from 2 years back when I was working for another company. And Rasa, I didn't know writing blog posts was also considered as a contribution, right? I was just learning about Rasa more and more, like beyond building a chatbot. I was
Mhm.
learning about how it actually works, and then created a blog post series out of it. And then that was recognized as a superhero contributor from Rasa, right? So I think it's not just about writing code; it's about a lot of things, and you should not even worry about contributing to a big project or anything. Just poke someone's code, read through it, and then make changes. You don't even have to push it. It just gives you a better experience of how someone else is writing a code. And I don't know if everybody has this internal barrier that someone else's code is like a very precious thing that you shouldn't touch. Every code that's out there is written by a human being. There is
Right.
all possibility for errors. So don't ever fear to touch someone's code. If you break it, they'll fix it or you'll fix it. So I think it's all written by human beings. There is going to be a lot of errors. There's going to be a lot of room for improvement, and it needs your help to make it a better code. So start somewhere. Don't look for posh projects. And it's an overwhelming, nerve-wracking, very your patient testing experience. I can give you that. It's going to test your patience so much, but it's all worth it. I got my current job, at Saama because of that open source contribution. This is how my interview went. I went in, I opened my contribution, I showed my code, closed the laptop, came back. So my offer was released. That's it.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. Just explain your code because you have your code in Pandas, the most used Python library by most machine learning experts. What else do you need, right? So that's one best way to get a job.
Contributing to open source, even though it's a huge thing to do. So like you said, it involves a lot of patience, when you're building something and contributing to open source, especially like getting that pull request sent and merged into that, because they have the standards. As a student or as a young developer, you might not know what are these standards and how to go about building things in the right way so that your pull request is being accepted by them, right? So how did you learn all this process that is involved in open source contribution?
Okay, again, this was not a course or anything. It's just very, I don't know. I think you kind of see this pattern again and again. It forms an intuition. So if I have to take a step back and give you a process, every project has a README file, which gives you an introduction about the project. The second thing is every project has a contributing.md file. So that's another file you'll see in most open source projects, which will say every step that's required for you to set up the project in your local machine and then run it. So when you're developing the project itself, that's the documentation that you will follow. But even before all that, start using a package as a user. Like how you find bugs in an application, right? Similarly, start using it as a user. So you can take something that you're using every day, for example, NumPy or Python itself, and be a critic. Why is this function written this way? Why is the variable declared this way? Why should I do this? Why should I do that? So by being a very bad critic, I think you can find a lot of room for improvements. And that is the starting point. After that, the moment you raise an issue and say, I want to work on that, they will kind of guide you through it.
Right.
If you push 4 lines of code into your first PR, then the contributors, the maintainers will take care of, taking that to merge. Just that you have to be constantly on top of their their feedback. So they'll be giving feedback on your code. Even the minute, indentation issues, they'll point to that as well. That's where I said the patience part, right? You have to take it as a, improvement advice or critical feedback, right? And work on that. So once you have your code in, everything else is taken care by them, but the contributing.md file is your starting point.
Right. So there's a beautiful point that you mentioned. It's all about curiosity. Like, be curious and ask questions to yourself, like why this thing works this way. That's probably the first thing that helps you learn a new programming language or a tool, right? Being curious and asking a lot of questions, like why not this? Why should I use this tool instead of that one? So ask a lot of questions. That is a good. And you mentioned that Dore has been a mentor for you, right? Initially. So I would like to know how did Dore enable you, or how did you help you as a mentor to become go in the right path probably? So can you talk about it a little bit?
Okay, Dora is still my mentor, by the way. I'm not ever gonna give that up.
Abandon him.
Yeah, never. He's I think he's the best thing that has happened to me in my professional life, because there's not, like I said, in college and all, there's not a lot of people to, tell me or streamline my passion. The moment I found Dorai, he knew what to do with me, what to do with my curiosity, what to do with my passion for community. And not a lot of people does that for you. Does take an effort, like start a community just because one of your team members is so passionate about it. Who does that, right? So I think, and a part of being a mentor is not about being a coach or a guide or anything. They don't come with an agenda, right? They don't want you to be, next Google employee or anything. Although he gives me such suggestions, but he doesn't have that kind of agenda for me. He just wants what I want. And then he nudges me in directions like, you should start writing blogs, you should start tweeting. All those, everything that I do has been actually suggested by him. And it was just a suggestion. It was not a push or anything. He suggested me to write blogs in 2016, right from 2016. And it took me 2018 to actually start it. But he never questioned, why are you not doing it or anything. I think being a mentor is just nudging people in the right direction and bringing the best out of themselves. And he does that in million ways. As a fresher, he would take me to client meetings because we were working for a company, right? I would sit on product development meetings. And I don't think any fresher would ever get such exposure to the company on the first year of their work, right? By the end of first year, I had 2 interns and 1 full-time employee working under me. And that's the kind of growth I saw, right? Just pushing you into things that you would not do without, pushing you into things that you would not experience in a natural way, right? So I think that's what I actually wrote a blog about this. You can go and refer how I transformed from an introvert to an extrovert. So I think I got like how he built my confidence. What are the things that's happened? I think I covered that in the blog better than this answer.
Okay. Can you mention a few points from the blog right now? Like how you build that confidence? Because a lot of people have that problem. Once you see, I think this is a big barrier, when you start off initially. This confidence, right? Confidence and low self-esteem is what is putting people down. So once you fix that, then you go ahead and do whatever you want to do, right? You write blog posts, you are not afraid of publishing it, or you're not afraid of recording videos. So how, like, can you mention few points for our viewers to say how you can break that barrier, that confidence barrier? Yeah.
I think as a society and as an education system, we have forever been penalized for making mistakes. Mistakes are not allowed or encouraged in our society or in our education system. You either get, it's like a binary, right? You either get 0 marks or 1 mark. And that's like the most bad internal barrier that all the adults have to face when you come into the real world system, because innovation happens because people make mistakes. Like Thomas Edison bulb, you don't know how many failures he has gone through, right? So only by failures we have come across so many innovations, and I don't know why society penalizes that. Once you see this truth, the contrast between the education system and the real world, I think that is the biggest step and eye-opener. And having a personality like Dorai has series of startups, success after success, and then he consults for these amazing companies. Having someone like that saying, you can do it, there's nothing better than that. I think that's what I'm trying to pay forward from all this community activities, right? If you can back someone up and say, doesn't matter if you fail, just try it. And I think that's, if you don't have a mentor, thankfully, as I said, I was very privileged to have the right people at the right time. If you're not, tell this to yourself. If you fail, I don't think people will talk about it more than a week. They'll move on, just like Big Boss, right?
Yeah.
So don't ever, I think confidence comes from making a lot of mistakes and coming back from it.
Right. We think we get extra conscious, when you do things and assume that, oh man, if I make a mistake, then people will notice it and then they'll think bad about me and all that. But then, like what you said, people forget it actually. People don't care what you're doing. Like the mistake that you're making is not going to be a big deal because everybody is busy with their everyday work and they're not going to see that. So once you realize that, it probably, gives you a better direction to go through, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing I also realized is, someone who's so busy with their life have no time to comment about someone else's life. The
Right.
only ones who are commenting on your life are the ones who are just sitting around and doing nothing with their life.
True.
That
True.
might be a
Yes.
harsh truth, but I've seen that in so many cases. As a woman, also,
Correct.
I faced a lot of backfiring
Yes.
because of, you know, as a
Mm-hmm.
woman who are sort of so passionate,
Yeah.
you receive a lot of backfiring. And all of
Mm-hmm.
that comes from people who are not doing anything with their life. And most of that frustration comes because
True.
of that.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, if you
Mm-hmm.
want confidence, just break things,
Mm-hmm.
go to the rock bottom and come back from it. There's nothing like confidence in
Yes.
there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point that you mentioned. People pass on comments only when they are free. Okay, they have nothing to do with their life, right? So I think there's one more video that I saw just a few days back in Instagram, which mentioned the same point. So you should not like. I think you need to develop that habit that you shouldn't take this as a big deal. Like when you see a negative comment on your YouTube video or something like that, just ignore all these negative things and only take the positive things that is coming your way, right? Even though it's difficult,
Yeah.
it's something that is going to push you to the right. And apart from that, thinking about you, you had mentor and you did take like did he told you what to do and everything, but then still it was you who did those things, right? Like I see a lot of people, who says that I want to write blog, I want to contribute to open source, but how many people do that actually, right? So you were
Mhm.
able to do that, even though it was 2 years later, you started writing blog, right? So that is a good thing. So we have to push ourselves out and get things done, right? Every day it is
Yeah.
easy for me to say that okay, let me do this later or tomorrow, instead of
Mhm.
writing the blog post now, I'll do it sometime later. But then I have to push myself to get started, right? Once I get started, I go in that flow, right?
Yeah, I think with respect to blogs alone, one thing that really helped me, again, I'm way privileged in this also.
Mm-hmm.
Orangecap had a writer's workshop plus 100-day writing challenge. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it all alone. I was writing abruptly blogs here and there, but it
Mm-hmm.
got streamlined when I adopted to the workshop. I took it twice, which means I wrote for 200 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we write with almost 15 people in the workshop. Every day
Mm-hmm.
we get together for 1 hour and then we write something. It's not a blog post, but we write
Mm-hmm.
every day and we published. I
Mm-hmm.
published around 50 blogs in there in the whole
Okay.
200 days, right? So I had someone, what support system to do that.
Right.
But one
Mm-hmm.
thing that really helped me publish that first blog was, when you publish your first blog, nobody's ever going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just publish it and aramse forget about it because nobody is ever going to read it. If nobody reads it, nobody's going to critique it. If that's your problem, right? The
Mm-hmm.
second thing is I had this habit of having a learn log. So
Mm-hmm.
Dorai has this habit of managing
Mm-hmm.
your team, right? When you're managing your team, we have something called as a work log and then a
Mm-hmm.
learn log. So work
Mm-hmm.
log is where you'll track all your work, and learn log is where you track all the learning that you had.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I have this 2 page, 3 page, I mean, not 2 page, it's 2 years of work.
Okay.
Just,
A big diary
it's a,
maybe.
yeah, it's a Google Doc.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, it's a long running document, and then there
Mm-hmm.
is no proper structure to go back and learn from it again. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, when I looked at it, I thought, maybe if I had made all those into blog posts, it would have helped me, and obviously
Right.
it would have helped others. So I think
True. Mm-hmm.
all your notes have ton of words to help other people. Even the
Right.
tiniest thing of how this command works. Every day we search so much, right? We search Stack
Yes.
Overflow and whatnot. So I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody should be blogging, and blogging also has given me a lot of openings and exposure to beyond the community. I think right, and English doesn't matter, English.
Mm-hmm.
I've written very bad English. If you think your English is bad, use tools like Grammarly. It will
Mm-hmm.
correct it to some level. It
Right.
will pay for it. It's $6,000 per year,
Mm-hmm.
and it will take care of most of the editing work. Find a writer friend like I do. I have a writer friend
Mm-hmm.
in hand who proofreads all my work.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So yeah, that's
everybody.
good. So writing actually is good in a way because it is a good thing to showcase your work, what you're doing. Usually we sit at home and I mean we are working in an office and then we come back home, but other people are not sure what is going on with our life, right? So I mean, they don't know whether you're working on this or what you're learning and everything. So this is like one of the ways in which you can showcase your skills and what you're doing, right? So people, people know Bhavani as someone who is good with chatbots and everything. Why? Because she was organizing these workshops and writing blogs about it, right? Initially, so the blogs put you in that radar. Like people are able to see what you are doing, and then they can reach out to you when they need something like related to your tech. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this has happened a lot with women tech makers also. The women tech
Mm-hmm.
makers, we conduct meetups again and again, but that
Mm-hmm.
didn't bring us the reach that we wanted. But the moment we published one blog, so many
Mm-hmm.
colleges from Chennai started reaching out to us, saying,
Oh,
we have started a women coding club, and then
right.
because meetups are not accessible to them, they don't know what meetups are.
True.
But a
Mm.
blog post or a Google search, your blog immediately
Correct.
pops up saying WomenTechMakers Chennai, and
Correct.
we got like 4 or 5 invites from SRM, St. Joseph Institute, and we conducted
Mm-hmm.
workshops all over those colleges. And I think blogs have a better reach than any other
Right.
medium.
Right, because blogs gets indexed by the search engines automatically. If you're using a good framework like WordPress or Gatsby and all. So
Yeah,
that's why people are able to find you. Random people are able to find you through Google and land on your blog, even though they have no idea who you are. Right,
exactly.
that's a good thing. Okay, and coming back, so I see that you write a lot of blog posts. So you said that the workshop that you attended at Oronscape, the writers
Mhm.
workshop, helped you create this habit of writing regularly, right? So that kind of broke your previous pattern of writing irregular posts or not publishing blogs often. So you need
Yeah.
something like this to maybe break your existing pattern and get into a new habit or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, having a support group kind of changes all. So we had 15 people, all of us write and submit blogs, all of us read each other's blogs, and that kind of made it more fun than,
Mhm.
a work kind of thing. I think you should take everything that you want to do and convert that into something fun. You can create your
Mhm.
own support groups and then, work on it. And another thing I noticed it, right? The college or the school mindset is not sharing. You have your
Mhm.
notes, you don't share it much. You
Mhm.
study for your exam, you say, "Padikkalada macham kadasi," last minute. Until your
Yeah,
last minute, you'll say, "I haven't read anything. I have not prepared at
yeah.
all." I think that
Mhm.
should change in real world. You should be able to share your work. You should be
Mhm.
able to help other people, and that's the only way you grow.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people who have tried to steal other people's work and then post
True.
it as their own. But after a point of time, their career kind of stagnates because
Yeah.
they'll be start to lose people along the way. But only by
Mhm.
sharing your work and helping for other people, you can
Right.
strive forward. And if you want to start a support group, go ahead, reach out to a couple of friends who are supportive,
Mhm.
and then start one and make it a fun process.
Yes. So the fun thing, it's going to be a very helpful factor, right? To keep it going for a long run.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe buy your friends a pizza if you're not publishing every week. You'll
Mhm.
automatically publish the following week.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We all need that support group to help us do things like this. Yeah, if there's a support group, you can find and join that pretty much. And
Yeah.
talking about sharing, right? You mentioned
Mhm.
about sharing. That is also a very important point to talk about. So people assume that if I share something, somebody might take it and he might use my idea or something like that. So if I share something, it means that I lose it. They don't think that they see it like this. If I share something, it means I lose it and somebody else is going to be gaining out of it. But instead,
Mhm.
in reality, it is not like that. When you share, it gets doubled, right? It comes back double. So
Exactly.
you get clarity and you become better than what you were before, right? When you talk
Mhm.
about technologies in these meetups or conferences, it's like you giving back to the community. Plus, you also get this confidence and you're learning more, right?
Yeah.
So that is something that people should take away from here. And next thing is, I've been recommending people to join Twitter. If they are like into programming development. So I tell people,
Okay.
hey, you should create a Twitter profile, follow a lot of developers. There's so much of
Mhm.
inspirations out there. You see people writing blogs, doing that, and that kind of helps you, see some motivation if you're lost, right? So how did you get started with that? Like joining Twitter and then posting tweets. Like you said, the Durai helped you start that, but then you had a lot of issues initially, right? So
Yeah. So again, it was Dore who was suggesting Twitter for a long time. I was Only in Facebook until then, I think, as a social media platform, only Facebook and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I don't like for so many reasons. I am still figuring out my place at LinkedIn. Even though being a professional network, I didn't have a good experience in there. But I was, since Durai suggested it so many times, and he used to send me tweets of certain like things he liked. And then I was like, okay, fine. At one point, you have to give up and subscribe for this thing. And it was so overwhelming for me because there are there's so much wisdom in there. It's like reading a book every hour,
Yes.
and if you follow the right people, you get the right content. And it's like so many experiences shared from across the globe. And you kind of get the sense of, they are not different from us. They're actually human beings living somewhere else, going through the same set of struggles as you. But initially and all, some of the tweets will be so different and so mind-boggling that I won't understand it. I would immediately send it to Garai and ask, what does this mean? And if it doesn't fit into my, my interest or anything, it could be something from US politics or something like that. Maybe it needs a context, I would just unfollow it. So I think you have to refine your profile in such a way that it makes sense to you at that point of time. And if you're starting out as a developer into Twitter, you should totally follow 100 days of code hashtag. You sign up to Twitter at first place. Second thing is search for 100 days of code hashtag. You'll see so many people around the globe learning every day and posting about it. There's nothing that's more inspiring than that. And even now, I try to take 100 days of code every year. This year, I couldn't, given Corona and every other crazy shit. But I think 100 days of code is another challenge that everybody should take at least once in your lifetime. It kind of gives you that discipline of pushing some code out every day. It doesn't matter whether it works or not. It's sitting
Right.
there for 1 hour and then putting your time and effort. I think that's a skill that everybody has to practice. It doesn't matter it's code or writing or anything. Putting your 1 hour of time on improving yourself broadly.
Right. For those who don't know about these things, like 100 days of code, can you give a little bit of idea of how that works? Like, how do you work with this hashtag 100 days of code? What do you do?
Okay. So 100 days of code hashtag is started by a guy in Twitter. He proposed this challenge to the world saying, you commit publicly to everybody in Twitter saying, I'm going to code for the next 100 days, giving my 1 hour of time every day. So you code for 1 hour every day and post your whatever you have done in that 1 hour in Twitter with a hashtag 100 days of code. So what happens? 100 days you will have, and you have to push your code to GitHub or any public forum, right? After 100 days, you would definitely see a change in the way you have coded. For example, let's say you want to learn Python over the next 100 days. You have a game plan saying, this is what I want, where I want to be at the end of 100 days. And you start building it. And I can definitely promise you, if you do it for 100 days, you will go to a better position.
Right.
From maybe you'll get your first internship, maybe you'll get your first job. I can guarantee it's all about your discipline and your time. It's not about what you're learning or how you're learning it. It's just sitting there
Yes.
and figuring it out.
True. Like you said, it's about the discipline, right? Like, how do I commit every day for at least 1 hour to do something like this? And this also brings in accountability, right? I tweet about something, so people will be looking for my next tweet tomorrow. if I disappear for a few days, then people will wonder, like, what happened to this guy?
Yeah. And if you want a supportive community, there's a Twitter community called Code Newbies. And that's an amazing platform. They have this chat every week. I think it's on Sunday nights. It comes for IST, I guess. So they'll ask you what have you accomplished in the last week, what are you planning to accomplish in your next week. So that tweet will have a lot of replies. You can read replies and you can collaborate with someone else, share their experience and all of that. That gives you motivation and accountability, like you said. Being a part of that community, having a sense of someone somewhere is doing the same thing that I'm trying to do, and it's not so daunting or a bad thing, privately.
Right. And you've been part of this other communities, right? Like GDG and WomenTechMakers, right? So, like, what are the good things that you saw coming out of WomenTechMakers, or from the events that you did in the last few years? You can touch base on a little bit of that. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, like I said, 2016 is when I started attending
Mhm.
meetups, right? Uh,
Mhm.
Sorry to mention this, even with Chennai Geeks, I would be the only woman there most of the times, or
Yes.
we'll have two more people who are coming there. And we looked
Right.
around and we couldn't figure out what the problem. We had the same problem when we started Built Alone as well. We started
Mhm.
it in Jan 2018. And
Mhm.
then until mid of that year, we had the same problem of, not having a lot of women coming in. And we were
Mhm.
unsure of why it's not happening. There are already enough women in the industry. And in
Right.
college, we have 50-50 ratio. But
Mhm.
why is no women coming up? And then one fine day, I found a spark, as in our Built to Learn website. I
Mhm.
used to be the only woman in the picture, but because of the carousel spacing, I was cut out, and it was
Mhm.
a lineup of men. So if you
Mhm.
see that, you will immediately feel not welcomed as a woman, right? It's so daunting
Mhm.
for me to enter such a space. So it's
Right.
going to be definitely daunting for other people. And I looked around, you cannot
Mhm.
find a picture of, women in tech in
Mhm.
Chennai around that
Mhm.
time. I in fact created a presentation with 10 pictures with no
Mhm.
women in there. All meetups
Mhm.
happening in Chennai, but no women in them. So that was the
Mhm.
state. So we need pictures, not even a
Right.
community, we need pictures with women in
Pictures.
them. So we went
Mhm.
around colleges, conducting workshops, taking pictures with them, bringing that back to
Mhm.
women to
Correct.
learn, posting that as a
Mhm.
carousel picture for the next event, and
Mhm.
then then women started coming in, at least students started coming in, and then we
Mhm.
had more pictures, and then finally one Piltulon, we had more women than men, and that
Mhm.
was like, okay, plan worked.
Mhm.
And that started, I started talking about it as you are in the community, the news spreads,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
Women Tech Makers was run by Swati at that time, Swati from
Mhm.
Script. So she
Mhm.
called me up
Yes.
and said, we have this International Women's Day from Women Tech Makers. Do you want to join it? So I went in as a speaker again first,
Mhm.
and then saw me being so passionate about women in tech. And that's
Mhm.
how I was brought into Women Tech Makers as an actual ambassador later in that year. So
Mhm.
that's how the whole thing happened, thanks to the
Right.
spark and the website.
Yes. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm guilty as charged. Even I didn't know like how to make this problem go away, right? I also see that there are very few women who are attending such meetups, but then I was clueless. I didn't know like what to do. But then based on what you said, it's like it's out there actually, but we don't see it. Like taking just like something simple as taking picture is enough for you to showcase that women are welcome into this community. We don't realize that, right? So we
Yeah.
need to like do certain things as a community to have this equality in us, right? To have a gender equality.
Yeah, I think even for diversity and everything, uh,
Mhm.
I don't personally like talking diversity in a women only forum because it's a general topic. It should be talked in every community out there
Yes.
because men
Mhm.
should be equally being taken into this process. If not,
Yes.
when you do a diversity hiring, right, they will be pissed.
Hmm.
They don't know
Hmm.
why the companies are doing it, right? So
Hmm.
the diversity topic should be talked in a public arena with all the
Hmm.
parties involved. Doesn't
Right.
matter gender or race or anything. I think it should be talked in the public arena. And the women only forums are to,
Hmm.
give them a safe space. It's like an
Hmm.
incubator, right? You should
Yes.
like introduce them to this new ocean slowly by,
Yes.
swimming in the pond, swimming in the lake, and then slowly introducing them to the ocean. I think that should be the goal of women in tech
Yes.
communities.
Yeah, and I was watching the React conference that happened last year. Okay, I don't know if you
Mhm.
saw that. So, and not React conference. Yeah, even React conference also. React conference also had about 50% or more than that women speakers, right? And then there was another React meetup that happened somewhere else in London or somewhere where like I didn't see a men at all in that group. So I was looking at it and I saw like why is this not happening in India, or maybe I'm not seeing it, right? It will be nice to have like equal participants from women. So I was wondering like how as a community that we can do these things, we can make these things happen. So I started thinking like that. Yeah, so your points are really helpful, valuable points that you mentioned just now. Okay.
I think
And yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I think consciously communities has to put that as a arena. I mean,
Mhm.
a factor when conducting conferences. For example, when we did Dev Sangamam, we were very
Mhm.
conscious about representing women. Are there not good men? That's not the question. We want an
Right.
forum to bring out women because they
True.
are the ones who are underrepresented. we'll give them opportunity at least once so that they can
Mhm.
outshine,
Mhm.
right? So that's where it's coming from. I think as a community, we should consciously make that effort to put
Right.
underrepresented people forward.
Yes. So it's amazing that what you guys are doing with women tech makers, helping women and all that. What is that like? Is it like only restricted to women, or how does it happen at the Women in Tech or Women Tech Makers meetup?
Okay, so it's a mixture. We don't necessarily say women only unless the topics are like that. For
Mm-hmm.
example, we had a unconference session last year. We wanted
Mm-hmm.
to do something really big 2020, but everything was screwed up. The
Mm-hmm.
ending of 2019, we had an unconference which was specifically to target what women wants in the community. So that
Mm-hmm.
event, no men are allowed. We were having a
Mm-hmm.
very open discussion about it. But
Mm-hmm.
the last month's event that we conducted online was open for everyone, and it depends on the basis of, the event on event basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have brought a lot of women out of their cocoon to,
Right.
experience this community and then give talks and everything.
Yes.
And we have a long way to go. It's not done yet. You have students passing out every year. You have these amazing women working in so many enterprises. We want to bring all of them and bring out as much role models as possible for other
Right.
women who are coming up just now. There are people out there. It's just that we have to bring them out. I think that's what we are focusing as a part of Women Techmakers.
Right. Yes. Like you said, yeah, there's a long way to go. We need to do that together. Yes. And since we mentioned about your current job as as a data science, are you working you're into research right now, right? Are you working in data science? Like, can we talk about that a little bit? Like, how did you get started with data science or machine learning? How did that happen?
Okay. Yeah, I think I give out a lot of machine learning and data science vibe, though I'm not
Mhm.
professionally that.
Okay.
I wanted to stress on that in as many events, but I work very closely with data science. I think it gives a picture that I'm a data scientist. I'm not. I'm a
Mhm.
backend systems person. I do DevOps. I push things to production and
Mhm.
take care everything works well in production systems. And I'm
Mhm.
also a product developer, not a researcher. And
Mhm.
Sama research team does both product and research. The whole idea of Sama research team is to not stop at research, but also
Mhm.
bring everything that's going on in the research into the products that we have
Mhm.
as a part of the company. So the team itself is split into research and development. So the
Mhm.
development part is where I am, and we've been converting state-of-the-art machine learning models
Mhm.
into something that the pharmaceutical companies can use
Mhm.
to streamline their process, right? So that's
Mhm.
where I am currently. I am a backend systems engineer completely in Python and using Kubernetes and Docker to push things to production.
Mhm.
And yeah, and we build some amazing systems. I've built some amazing systems as part of that. I have also a blog about it. Like even after 4 years of experience and everything, I still bang my head 3 weeks in a line to
Yeah.
figure out a problem, and that's never going to change. You will
Yes.
always have problems, and you will always not know how to solve it. You then sit and think about it. It will come. You can talk to people. I think that's never going to change ever. And if you're a beginner and if you're saying, I can't solve a hacker rank problem, don't worry. We have struggled so much
Yeah.
figuring out how to solve one in the industry as well.
Right. Yes. Even after 20 years, or experienced people still have that problem. They work with
Yeah,
something new and they're banging their head to the wall.
yeah. I think that's never going to change in tech ever because it's so fast moving, right? So nobody can ever catch up.
That's true. Yeah. And since we are in the topic, about data science and all, I see a lot of students pursuing data science or machine learning. When I go to a college and I ask, what do you want to learn? Everybody would shout data science, machine learning, and all that. So
Uh-huh.
I always have this thought that is it really overrated, or what is going on there? Like, is there a vibe to data science? Like, why people are going towards it? Why all the students are going towards data science? Or what would you advise when a student says like this? I want to do data science.
I think it is a very normal thing for me because when I was studying, it was Java.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody said you learn Java, you'll get a job. So we're like, okay, fine, we'll go learn Java, right? And then the
Mm-hmm.
next year after I passed out, it was Node.js. Everywhere
Mm-hmm.
it was like, no, learn Node.js, you'll get a job. And then
Yeah.
I think then it changed to machine learning and data science, and now since machine learning, everybody thinks it's like there, it's like Java, it's been established for 15 years. Actually, it's not. It has just started booming after 2016. So it has still a long way to go. And if you're starting now, you would probably catch up with the growth of the field itself. And if you're doing machine learning, you should focus on, getting the basic ideology of how to solve a text problem, how to solve a numerical problem, how to solve an image problem. So get the basic understanding, get your math right. Just move to project-based learning very fast. Of course, for machine learning, you need a lot of theory, you need a lot of understanding, but don't stick to that so long. Just spend like 3 months on your basic study, but move to projects. Only by doing projects, you can learn a lot.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
yeah. Yeah, my only way to like the only reason I learned machine learning so much is because of chatbots. If not for that, I would have never touched natural language processing. Even now, I don't know how to work with numerical problems, and that's fine, right? You can also choose your niche, saying, I'll only work with text problems. I'll only work with numerical problems. So you can again explore and experiment with things, and whatever works for you works for you.
Right. Okay, so we are almost towards the end. I think we have just few more questions to go, right? So let me touch upon this one. So, what are like some of the challenges you face of being a woman in tech world when it comes to job and everything? Community-wise, we have discussed this already. People are don't see that they are welcome into community and all that. There needs to be a lot of change that has to be done in the community level. But in a company level, what are some of the challenges that you had while getting in?
Okay. When you specifically ask about company level, I never had a problem with companies ever in
Okay.
terms of women in tech or anything. There was,
Okay.
thankfully for me, there was no partiality, there was
Right.
no pay difference or any of that issues. I think, I don't know whether it's an Indian thing or anything. For me, it has never happened. Thankfully, God's grace. But we talk a lot about this. I want to ask a question back to you, right? We talk
Okay.
a lot about glass ceiling
Mm-hmm.
or bamboo ceiling in Asian terms.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that ceiling is?
Glass
How
ceiling,
far?
huh?
Yeah, breaking the glass ceiling, breaking the barriers. How
Mm-hmm.
far do you think that barrier is?
Close to me, not very far from me.
I think you're the only person who gave me the very
Okay.
perfect answer, right?
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
whenever you think about ceiling, it's like 9 feet tall or 10 feet tall
Right.
above you. But
Okay.
actually, for Indian women, the ceiling is right here. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
even, you know. So it's just your. For me, it
Yes.
was my family's biggest barrier, and
Mm-hmm.
to not to break your bonds, but to educate them. This is how a working
Right.
woman is. This is
Yes.
the freedom that she has. That's the kind of empowerment that you can do for your family, but you can't,
Mm-hmm.
extend it to your society.
Yes.
I don't have the bandwidth to do that to my extended relatives or society. I don't have the
Mm-hmm.
time to explain why
Correct.
it works this way for me and not for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of pulls you back. You spend
Mm-hmm.
enormous amount of energy just fighting that. I have done that
Yes.
8 years in my life, from my
Mm-hmm.
teenage till my work,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just wasting women's energy again and again. And
Yeah.
I think once you will think that you have crossed that barrier. Now you are in your financial stability and you're into the working arena, and then comes starting a family, and that
Yes. Yes.
again puts a lot of barriers on you. And
True. Mm-hmm.
if women keeps fighting these, where will we have time to actually go and fight the community or fight for the community
Yes.
or
Yes.
improve our skills? I think at one point you should just do not mind about any of these things that's pulling you back. Set a goal and just walk towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Shut your eyes, ears, and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the only thing. You don't have I think I have done the wrong thing by fighting everything. If you're a
Oh.
woman and if you're empowered, if you want to achieve something in your life, don't fight anything, just don't mind it. Ignorance
Right.
is bliss. I
Mm-hmm.
realized very late in my life, but yeah, don't try to bake gas leaks
Yes.
that are here. Just go for it above and beyond.
Yeah, that's a very good thing, right? Like, yeah, I understand that. As women face a lot of problem in compared to men. Like even staying out of house late in the evening is going to be a trouble. There's so many things that we can talk about when we talk about issues, right? Because of the society and how our parents think, right? And we need to spend a lot of time in educating. Like, not about fighting. Yes, like you said, we should ignore. I mean, we cannot waste our energy into fighting people, but I think there's a lot of education to be done, for our parents. I also do that. I spend a lot of time with my parents telling them this is how the world is right now. You think the world should be like this, but it's not like that. This is what. So we spend a lot of energy into explaining things, that are, educating our parents and friends and so on, right?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, so I understand those are the challenges.
Mm.
And yes, so this one I need to ask for a few points on how to improve gender diversity in a company or a community. You said clicking pictures, like including them as part of a team, making it show that we are welcoming them into the community is one thing. Like that, what are the points that you can help us with in such a way that we can improve the gender diversity in a community or a company?
Okay. Um, I think the first thing I already said, right? Being
Mm.
consciously making an effort to
Right.
actually bring them in. So
Mhm.
initially, when I went around attending communities and
Mhm.
I come back and post on Twitter about being the only women there. The
Right.
immediate reply I get from the community members are that I think next
Mhm.
time you should bring more people in.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
for that community would have been run for 15, 16 years, not you,
I'm
Brett.
guilty. I'm guilty as charged. I might have also said that to you. Mm.
So the community would have ran for 5, 6 years back then, and nobody would have thought about it. The moment someone says it, it's my responsibility suddenly, right? I think if you're running a community or a company, it's your responsibility. If you care about gender diversity, you have to
Mhm.
do it. It's a very blunt or a very arrogant truth, but yeah, that's how it is, right? We have to
That's true.
consciously make an effort. The second thing I want to talk about is, there's this huge concept called unconscious bias. Doesn't
Yes.
matter whatever gender you are, you should read up about it because our society is structured in such a way that we do not know our unconscious bias. That's why it's unconscious, right?
Yes.
So we have all of them. There are
Yeah.
9 to 10 unconscious biases primarily, and we have all of them. And
Mhm.
both women and men has it. So we all should learn and educate ourselves about unconscious bias. So the next time we do it unconsciously, for example, it's a very simple thing. In a hackathon, a woman was facing some problem. She goes to her male uh, teammate,
Right. Right.
asks for
Mm.
a help, and then he just grabs the laptop, put it in his lap, and then starts coding.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't teach her what it is. He doesn't tell her what the problem is. It's just you don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Let me do it, and then
Yeah.
get out of the way, something like that. I think these are
Mhm.
all coming from our very, very subtle and conscious biases, which we should be very aware of. And that will take us to the next step on, representing more people, giving way for other people to, represent them. Like cutting people in meetings, that has
Mhm.
happened a lot, you know,
Okay.
consciously.
Mhm.
They don't do it consciously or anything, but
Mhm.
it's all unconscious, right? So then
Mhm.
the respected parties has to be consciously aware that I'm doing this because of my unconscious bias. Maybe I
Mhm.
should give space for other people to talk.
Mhm.
And yes, those are the two things. One, it's the responsibility of everybody to
Mhm.
represent more people. The second thing is know your unconscious biases.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Yes, we need to learn about ourselves before we go and complain others. What others should do or how others should help you. First, I think we need to look into ourselves first to see what wrong am I doing, what biases do I have that I need to break if I want to make things happen. Right. So changing self is very important here. Right. Okay, folks. I think a lot of people have posted comment. I think we'll come back to that comment in a while. I think I just have a couple of questions. I'll finish it and then we'll look at the questions to see if we have not answered any of that so far. Right. So now,
Mhm.
Bhavani, like, what is your advice for aspiring developers?
I think I've repeated that like
You
five
repeated
times
that
in this
already.
talk. And yeah,
Okay, so start.
I think.
I'll just reiterate that. Okay, you need to start working on projects, like you said. Start building stuff, right?
Mhm.
And push your code to GitHub, or you can join communities, attend these meetups. Talk about your work. Like, push code and then start talking about it, on Twitter, Facebook, and the blog, and etc. Right?
Mhm.
So that's a good
Yeah,
advice. And then,
recommend don't fear failure. Try start working on projects from day one. Reach out and ask for help, and communities are a great way to do it.
Mhm. Okay, and just name a few books and podcasts that you listen to very often that help you, do your work well, like as a developer.
Okay. Books primarily Pragmatic Programmer. I just started learning reading it 2 weeks back. I
Hmm.
realized that my life would have been completely different, like fast forwarded even more if I have read it
Hmm.
2 years back. So if it doesn't matter wherever you are in your programmer journey, take that
Hmm.
book and read it. And when you're starting out, you might not understand a lot of things. Maybe I understand it because I have seen production systems and stuff like that. But I
Hmm.
think this is a Bible that every programmer should learn at least read every year. So
Hmm.
that it's this book has been around for 20 plus years. I think they have released their 20th edition, like 20th year edition just now.
Hmm.
Right. So I think this book is like the Bible for the programmer. Everybody should read it. I am enjoying it so much. Even if you don't understand certain parts, next year you will, because
Hmm.
you have grown from them, right? So that's
Right.
one book. Second book is Clean Code, though it has received a lot of bad comments, unfortunately. I
Hmm.
think as a Python developer, it will expand your coding skills to a different level. Python being interpreted language and everything, people can code in whatever they want. I think Clean Code gives you a structure to follow. You don't have
Right.
to follow it like a Bible, but that's a good learning.
Hmm.
And I think those are the two books I really liked. And on
Hmm.
top, I just started reading technical books. I don't read a lot of technical books, which was a mistake again. If you're
Hmm.
just starting, you read a lot of technical books, not just programming books, right? There is architecture books, there is like design books. I don't remember the name. There's this Four Design Principles, which is also an
Hmm.
age-old book. These are like Bibles of software, like how it has evolved. Read about Agile, read about Scrum, and why did it not work. I also like the Unicorn and Phoenix Project, those two books.
Hmm.
Initially, if you're starting a beginner, those books are like you won't understand a lot,
Hmm.
but I think it's a good learning, and you should talk. Once you read this book, talk about it, write on a blog. People will
Hmm.
comment on it, and then they again you will learn a lot from there. So those are the books. Podcast, My First Million.
Hmm.
That's like my favorite podcast.
Okay.
I think it's by the I don't
My
remember who
my first billion. Is it
million.
million? Million. Okay. My first million.
I forgot. It's the Hustle. I think it's from the Hustle guys. I don't know exactly.
Okay. All right.
That's like, and the Accidental Creative, that's like a motivational 15-minute podcast just to
Hmm.
start your day with. It's really
Hmm.
super inspiring.
Hmm. Okay, great. So yeah, one thing that you mentioned is about reading. No, like reading is also a
Mhm.
very good thing that had a huge impact in my life as well. When I started initially, I had this friction that whenever I take a book, I feel so bored and I don't have this motivation to read at all. I'm like, dude, this book is 300 pages long. I can't read this, and I keep pushing it away, and I never read for like so many years. Okay, plus. I don't have anybody near me who's reading book. In my family, none of the people read books. That was also another problem. But I
Mhm.
realized as soon as I got started with reading, that helped me in a great way, right? My vocabulary improved and the way I talk to people improved, and the knowledge I could get knowledge from around the world, right? So that is also an
Mhm.
interesting thing about reading books. So as a young developer, I was also putting off books. So I would suggest that people read more often, right? Reading blog posts and books. That's a
Yeah.
good thing to do.
I think start with 10 pages a day. I stopped reading in the middle of 2020 altogether. And
Mhm.
restarting is again like a very newbie. It's very difficult. 10 pages a day, you will be
Right.
back on the speed. Yeah.
Yeah. At one point, I bought a book, an expensive book, just to make sure that I will read it at least for the money that I paid for that book.
Yeah.
And I still couldn't actually. 6 months
Did it
went
work?
by. No, it didn't work actually. The book was lying down in my table for almost 6 months, and I never touched it. And then after that, I
Oh.
realized, oh man, this is really bad. I need to break out of this bad habit. So I said that,
Mhm.
okay, from now on, can I do this? Can I spend 1 hour a day into reading books? I forced myself to read books. I said, after coming back home, after
Mhm.
having my tea or coffee or whatever, I said, I will just read a book for 1 hour. That's it. I had to push myself to read. initially I didn't, I couldn't understand what book had. Okay, because a lot of words were new to me when I was reading these foreign books written by foreign authors. So I had to keep a dictionary at the side, and for every line I have to look at the dictionary twice or thrice.
Okay.
Right? Did you have a similar experience when you got started with reading books, or were you a
I
reader?
started with novels actually when I was a teenager. I started with Indian writers, not foreign writers. I started with very bad novels. I regret reading them right now, but those are the things, those are the stories that got me hooked to, reading. So I think I'm kind of crisply grateful to Chetan Bhagats of the world, you know. I'm not ashamed of saying that because those are the people who got me hooked into books. And then I remember like throwing one book away because the story was so crappy. And then I
Yeah,
stopped reading fiction and switched to non-fiction.
right.
So yeah, some way or other it worked.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. People should start reading more often. That's like reading. Somebody said that reading books is like going into somebody else's mind, which doesn't happen, right? Like, you don't know what other people are thinking, but books can let you see that world of others, right? So
Exactly.
that,
And it's also going back in time. So, for example, I read a book recently about happiness. It's from 1986. So, the book was written in the timeline of 1986, where women in tech is not a thing. Women
yeah,
in workspace is not a thing, not even in the
yes,
US, right?
yes,
So, that was, you are going, it's like a time machine only, right? You are
yeah,
going back and living in that age and
correct.
time. So, yeah, only by accumulating all these thoughts, you can, come up with fresh thoughts else.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, the last thing that we have to discuss is about productivity. Okay, so how do you keep yourself productive every day? Because I also start work. Everybody else who start work, what they do is along some way or the other, I don't know, they get distracted by social media or Netflix or so on, and now they are not able to get back in track with their productivity. They keep on procrastinating work. So how do you manage, your productivity?
Okay, I recently wrote a huge blog post about it. I'm like selling my blog post a lot because there are a lot of answers in there which I can't like accumulate it into this, but I'll try. I'm also big on Instagram, you know that. I'm also big
Yes.
on Twitter. I spend a
Yes.
lot of time on Twitter, you know that. And I watch all kinds of series in Amazon Prime. I've pretty much watched everything in there. There's nothing for me to watch anymore.
Right.
I'm also big on movies. I watch English, Malayalam, Tamil movies. On top of all of them, I still work. I still run communities.
How does that happen, Bhavani? Come on. In 24 hours, if you do all these things, watching
I
series
still
and
run.
movies.
I'm like very privileged. Everything like food and all it's taken care. So like I have a lot of time at hand. But
Yeah.
the thing I want to stress on is productivity is not equal to working. If you can take that to your mind, that's like the biggest learning that you can take away from here. Productivity is not equal to working for your company. Unfortunately, it's been used by the companies because they want you to work more, right?
Right.
But productivity is about so many things. It's about laughing with your friend for 1 hour is productivity, right? It gives you energy to go back and fix that bug. And if you are doing that, then you're productive. Maybe if you're slouching on, if you couldn't work at all, then there is a problem which you need external or internal help, right? If it's an extreme condition, like people have anxiety issues and procrastination issues, I'm not talking about the condition side of it, but there's a misconception that if you're having fun, it's not productive. Having fun, watching movies, or spending time with yourself, doing yoga, it's all productive work only. Making your
Right.
own meal is productive, right?
Yes.
Buying pizzas is productive. I don't know, like you have this misconception of if you're not doing something that directly gives you that reinforcement, it's not productive. I don't think that anything that you do that keeps your energy up so that you can do the boring stuff is productive. I think I kind of have a lot of leisure in, I can take, if I'm like really low, I'll take a break from everything and do completely fun stuff, which is talking to my friends for 2 hours nonstop, or talking to my community members, or binge watching a movie. I've binge watched a lot of movies. I would
Yes.
like, yeah. So all of that keep your energy up. I think doing anything that keeps your energy up is productive. And if you have extreme anxiety, procrastination issues, reach out and ask for help.
Okay.
Don't take
So
my advice there.
So is it like this? You watch a series, okay? You binge watch certain series for some time if you're feeling low or you don't have this mood to work, and then you find time to get back to work again. Like
Yeah.
you have this discipline to stop watching Netflix and then go to start work, because I see a lot of people. If I see this as a trap, once I start watching Netflix, then that becomes a habit for me, and I'm not able to get out of that. Right? So how are you doing that? Do you have the discipline to close with 2-3 episodes and then move on to my work? How does that happen?
Not at all. I have to start. I mean, I think it's helpful in most of the ways, and it's not helpful in certain ways. I want to finish what I start. Like you
Mhm.
mentioned somewhere, right? I'm also a finisher, right? Not
Mhm.
about side projects primarily, but mostly in series also. If I start something, I want
Right.
to finish it to the end. And
Yes.
towards the end, right, when you're actually into it 10 series, like
Mhm.
10 seasons, and then finally you have this sulking feeling in you, how
Mhm.
much time I have wasted.
That's it.
And that's
Yeah.
your cue, right? That's your cue. That's your body telling, you're ready to do some work. I think you
Yes.
should catch on to it and run to your system and start working on something. Then you
Mhm.
will pick it up. I think that guilty feeling gives you a lot of
Yes.
motivation, not anything.
Yeah. That's right. Actually, yeah, that's true. We need to see that when you're doing this
So,
thing in real life. Yeah. All right, that's fantastic. And one more thing is, I used to think, when I was looking up to other developers who are like very very active, or contributing to open source or building companies and all that, I used to assume that, okay, I am not able to do this because I am captured into these things, watching Netflix movie all day, and then I'm hooked up with Instagram and everything. That is the reason why I'm not able to do. These guys are able to do because they are not into that. Okay, that hit me hard when I actually asked this question to multiple people, including you. Okay, I asked another person, when we are sitting next to each other during a flight a long time back. Okay, I asked him. He was an inspiration actually. So I asked him, like, how are you able to do this? Do you have any distraction? Then he said, like, come on, Magesh, name any of the series that is running on Netflix, and I would have definitely watched it. And then he watches a lot of other videos on YouTube. He reads books. Then it hit me hard that, come on, he is also like me. He is also watching a lot of movies and everything. But then he's able to manage his energy well, right? Like you said, he is able to pick up that cue and then go do something productive at one point, which
yeah.
probably I'm not doing it well. So I got that idea from him, and now you have said the same thing. You are also into series and Instagram and everything. But then you find time to do these things. If you like, it's about how badly you want to do something, right? How badly do you want to succeed? So that will push you to this, right?
And also the series has to come to an end at some point.
Yes, yeah. It depends, no?
One thing that I want to stress on is, initially when you're in a programmer mindset or just
Mm-hmm.
starting to get hooked, you end up
Mm-hmm.
spending a lot of your time just programming. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing since you're learning and improving and everything. You kind of lose track of yourself at one point, and it hit me hard very late in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so old and all, but it took me 3 years to actually. So the moment you need you to support
Mm-hmm.
yourself, when a situation goes bad or something, you want your support more than anybody else. You don't know. You are just blindfolded. All been doing so far was programming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
you don't know how to react in certain situations. I think if you're programming, also take a step back, look at your personality beyond a programmer or a developer. What
Mm-hmm.
kind of a person are you? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? Know yourself as a person. I think everybody should spend time there as well. So
Mm-hmm.
moment something goes really bad, you can pull yourself up again. If you have
Mm-hmm.
not worked on it, I think it's going to be really bad. I think nobody has taught me that. I wish I say it in a public forum so that people work on themselves more than programming.
Mm-hmm.
That's also equally important.
Yeah. So if you keep working continuously, on programming or whatever it might be, you eventually reach a point where you burn out, right? Where you have this thing happen, and then it no longer interests you. Like you are in a place where you have lost it, right? So you need to make sure that you have that balance, that work-life balance also. That is also very important, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Awesome, Bhavani. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. I think we've come to the end. Let's quickly look at the comment section to see if there's anything interesting.
Sure.
We see a lot of supporters, but I don't see anything. I think we have covered everything that people might want to ask. Mm,
So my blog
so,
link is all
yes,
bhavaniravi.com. So if you want
yeah,
that.
Correct. So I think I posted it in Facebook and Twitter also, so people can take it from there. And what else? Here's
I don't
another
know
question.
who. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, go ahead.
So it is a good idea to change domain. Say when you have few years of experience in Java, she has to machine learning or AI. Okay, I think you can take this up. A Facebook user has put this up here.
Okay. I
Is it
think
okay
it's
to change direction from Java or something to going back to machine learning or AI? What would you say?
I think it totally depends on what your life situation is, right? If you have the privilege of taking a break for 6 months and working on machine learning projects and get another job, I would say
Mhm.
go for it. But not everybody has that privilege. Not everybody has the privilege of working beyond 8 hours. It totally depends on what you have, like what kind of resources you have around you. If you're so passionate about it and if you can put 1 hour of your time every day and change tracks, go for it.
Right.
And that's totally a life decision, I would say, than a programmer's choice or anything. If you're a college
Yes.
student, it's all different, right? You have 3 years to
Mhm.
experiment and learn from there. But if you're already into the industry, and if, I don't know what your commitments are, so it depends. It totally depends on that.
Mhm.
Hey,
All
I
right.
see you messaging.
Mhm.
GDG Chennai is not active. I'm like surprised about it. You know, do you want me to take that question?
Yes, yes. Yeah, go ahead. Answer that question.
Okay, why is GDG Chennai not active? I don't know why is that the thing. We ran a Women Tech Maker event 2 times last month, and we had events even before that month, and we had Deaf Fest coming. I think it's an all India Deaf Fest happening virtually this year. We used to have a region wise, like Chennai used to have one, Madurai used to have one, but this year it's all one. So it's
Mhm.
happening next week, 16th, 17th, 18th. So I
Mhm.
hope you all join there. I think that's why GDG Chennai is not so active,
Mhm.
because we are all focused towards pushing that one conference out for us. Yeah.
Mhm. And you're also doing multiple things, no? Like you said, the women tech makers is one thing, and then you have the podcast, Talk
Yeah.
Overflow, right?
Mhm.
So maybe I think I don't know if whoever you are, if you don't know this, you should check out their podcast. They're into other activities. GDG is still active, but they're doing different things rather than a
Yeah,
normal meetup. I think. Yeah.
we started a podcast because we, like you said, we have a lot of technical content out there, but there
Mhm.
is not the human element to it. Like I have never
Mhm.
given a talk like this where people know
Mhm.
me as me, right?
Yes.
So I think that is missing given the COVID and everything. People are going through so much stress. I think
Mhm.
this is the right time for us to start a podcast and start bringing out the human side of people rather than the tech. So that's the whole idea
Right.
of Talk Flow.
Mhm.
And GDG Chennai is still active. We are having a conference next week. So
Mhm.
check out our social media. That's where everything is coming up.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I want to add one more point to that question, the previous question about changing domain, right? So I've seen a lot of people recently, not in India. Maybe in India, people don't see that as a big deal, I think. But in other countries, I see people making some radical changes. Like I've seen a chef become a developer, okay, and I've seen a chartered accountant become a developer. Okay, so this sort of things is amazing. Actually, it is still possible, but people think it is not possible. Like once you choose your career, then you're like you have to go straight into that. It's not like that. Whether you're an automobile engineer or a computer science engineer, it doesn't matter. You can choose to start coding even today, right? Even you can decide, and of course, there's a lot of work involved, but then it's up to you, right? If you have the passion, if you think this is what you need to do, then you should be able to do that. Doesn't matter what background that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been reading a lot of
Exactly.
blog posts, so I've seen that. I read this blog about Tanya Rasia from the React community. So
Mm-hmm.
she turned herself like she used to be a full time chef, and from there she learned in the late nights, and then she joined as an intern for another startup company, and she became a developer, and she's now a contributor to React documentation. She wrote documentation for React, and she's very very active. So it's still
Exactly.
possible to change domain. It doesn't matter. Yeah, awesome. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening to us. We'll catch you later, maybe in the next session, similar session like that. We want to do more such discussion. Like Bhavani mentioned, we need to have this human touch to our community always. So I'm totally excited to do more of these sessions. Bhavani, do you have any closing notes? You want to say anything?
Closing notes, as in, I said that repeatedly. So
Yeah, like bye
follow
bye.
that. Yeah, and take care of yourself, your mental, physical, and your emotional,
Mhm.
financial, all of those are health. Take care of all those health and take care of people around you. And I see one last question that again popped up. I think it was there before also. How to deal with resource overload, right?
Mhm.
I just want to give a small hint on that. I have started up the learning dev because of this problem. Like
Mhm.
once you want to start learning something, there is so much out there, and you don't
Mhm.
know which one to follow. So here is what I do to avoid resource overload. So if it's something I can experiment with, I directly go for experimentation, like I said, right? But if it's something very technical or architectures and all, you can't experiment in your VS Code, right?
Mhm.
So pick out 20 links, like Google search, pick out 20 links, either your Google search or the videos, like YouTube videos,
Mhm.
right? Stop at 20 links, go back and look at all of them, read through all of them, and whatever resonates the best with you, like make notes. And the whatever resonates the best with you, go back and learn from it. And then once you have this, by this time, you will have what are the things that you should search for, what are the things that you need to learn more about, what are the things that you need to refine further on, whether you need to take, if none of these 12, 20 links helps, go and take a course, right?
Mhm.
But by the time you finish this 20 links, you will pretty much cover the domain completely. You will have different authors giving you different things. I think that's how you stop yourself from, get putting your head into all those resources, not knowing what to do. And if again it's so overwhelming because there are like millions of resources out there, just buy a nice book and follow it end to end. Build all the projects, build all the exercises. That should get you going.
Yeah, as you said, there's a lot of resources. I have like 100 links in my browser bookmark, and I'm not going to read that anytime soon. I don't know. I've been putting it off for a very long time, but I'll follow your advice. Like, it's a good idea to pick up the last 20 links and see, like,
Mhm.
get back to it and read through it and see which one resonates. Right? That's an interesting
Exactly.
approach. So I'll definitely do that. Thanks a lot,
Mhm.
Bhavani, for joining us today and sharing a lot of insights. I think we have unlocked so many insights for people who are listening to us. Right.
Yeah.
So see you guys. We'll catch up later then. Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much for
Bye bye. Yeah. Ending the podcast. Bye bye.